Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of NCIS Season 20, Episode 2, Daddy Issues. This was a ridiculous episode. I'm just going to say that right from the get-go. There's a lot of comedy. There's a new character for this channel that I'm going to be introducing here shortly, so prepare yourselves for all of that. We have a case. There's some interesting things to talk about with McGee as well.
This was just a really fun episode. This is going to be one of those ones that I feel like you can go back and rewatch and have a good time over and over again with, which is one of the things that NCIS has always done very well.
All right. Well, before we get further into this, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you are new to the channel. I am Matt. This is Jess. We are here breaking down NCIS after every single installment, and hopefully we get really a lot more fun stuff like what we got here.
Also, follow us over on our Instagram, which is Matt and Jess TV. We would really appreciate that.
Okay. It's time, everyone. We found cheese early on in this episode. Hello. I am Monterey Jack. I am here to investigate the cheese. Is this supposed to be French?
I don't know what is going on over here, but the cheese puns were plentiful at the beginning of this episode. It was like Matt's dream. If for those of you who are new, Matt loves puns. He loves dad jokes. So this cheese beginning was all for Matt.
Thank you.
It was written for you.
It was pretty good, if I do say so myself. There were just so many great. That's the appropriate reaction.
Fondue yourself.
Yeah, in between Jessica Knight with some of those, in between Jimmy.
It's so funny.
Like there was just a lot of really funny. Even like the idea of somebody being lactose intoleranted to death in the early going here, like that as well. It's like, okay. You guys are in season 20. You have pretty much killed every random petty officer in as many different ways as possible. I like to think that like Steve Binder and the writers just like have a whiteboard of like, what are the weird ways to kill people that we haven't done on the show yet?
Yeah, I mean, when they first walked in there and it was all cheese, I actually was really hoping that it was going to be about cheese and that there was something going on that maybe the rest of us didn't know about. They really wanted to push something out there, but no, it ended up being more about guns.
Yeah, it could have been cheese, but instead they were like, you know what, this cheese, it's nacho problem. We got to focus on some other things here, including...
Please don't unsubscribe. Please don't unsubscribe.
Good news, guys. I'm pretty much out of cheese material at this point, but
that's not true.
Okay, we'll see.
I don't believe you.
We'll see how things go. Instead, we get into all this other weird and interesting stuff in this case, including, Carter, who McGee knows because he's another one of the dads at school who's got a very interesting sort of way in which he is helping out and getting all the kids dropped off, which includes just like stopping McGee in the middle of his drive and letting people just drive around him.
I really liked this character, and I liked that it was starting to like draw McGee out a little bit because he can be a little bit closed off, a bit kind of like Gibbs. It takes a while for him to warm up to people that he doesn't know. Like, I understand where he's coming from. Small talk, I'm not so good at that either. It's a skill, like, for people that know how to do that and kind of get to know people on very easily. I mean, I commend you. That's not that easy. But, for McGee, it's very difficult. And I think a little bit of that can come with leaning on the nerdier side of things like McGee or myself.
Yeah, and I think Carter is someone who clearly is just like so desperate to make some friends and have like this extended social circle. Like we've heard, he's always hanging out with some of the best people. I think some of that was a little desperation. Also, Man Time Monday, which is number one, a hilarious name. Number 2, my man time Monday is like playing Red Dead Redemption. It is not like going to some deuce bar and like hanging out with a bunch of people that I don't know. That sounds terrifying to me.
Okay, let's talk about sort of the meat of this episode, at least to me, because overall this episode didn't push a lot of big stories forward here, or didn't really introduce a lot of new ones, but it did introduce one that I think we are gonna see circled around again, or at least I hope that we are gonna see this again, that they've set up something for McGee. So he was undercover. He's at this like dad fantasy football, which was really like fantasy dad, which sounds like something else entirely that I won't go into here. But it was sort of like a dad group where you can talk about dad stuff or things that are on your mind that, you know, might be away from what you normally have to talk about. And one of the things that McGee was getting really he was just over it, was everyone wants to talk to him about his job. And every time he meets up with new people, they want to talk about his job. And while he understands that that would be really fascinating to a lot of people, because how often do you get to meet somebody with his type of job? Of course you want to know about it. On his side, he's kind of like, well, there's a bit more to me than that. And it would be cool if people wanted to know about me. I'm not my job kind of thing. But we had him undercover. And there was this moment that he got the football and it was time for him to sort of open up. And he closed off the glasses so that everyone back at NCIS couldn't hear what he was saying. And he was like, there actually is something that I do want to talk about away from work. And so we never got to know what it is. I'm hoping that they're going to circle back around to it. It wasn't just kind of a throwaway line. But what I'm really hoping it's not, and for the record, I do not think this is what it is, that there's any problems in his marriage.
I think Tim and Delilah are going to be fine. I agree with you. I don't think it's that. My theory on what it could be is just that, you know, he had like this father figure in his life in Gibbs who was always there for him with lessons, advice, comfort. He was a friend. Gibbs is gone. And so I think he's struggling probably with like the absence of that figure. And he probably has some insecurity about like, you know, am I a good enough dad? Like here is, you know, Carter, a guy who is clearly around a good bit. You know, he works reasonably most of the time from home. He's able to do things with the balloons. He's able to, like, and McGee is very, very busy. And I think a lot of that probably takes a toll on him. It's probably hard for him to go home and just like immediately like flip the switch and be like, hey, I'm a dad now, and not think about dead bodies.
Yeah, I mean, it could have to do with Gibbs. I mean, enough time has passed that I would hope that he's moved past it a bit. Talked to Delilah about it. I'm sure he's opened up to her about it and how he was feeling, and sort of moving on from deciding not to take Gibbs's job that, you know, was offered to him. And he was like, nah, I don't want that life. I'm happy where I am, sort of thing. Is he having regrets about that? I don't know. But because he said that this isn't job related, there's only a handful of things that it could be. It could be about his wife. It could be about his kids, or it could really be about Gibbs. Because even though Gibbs, yeah, he was obviously his boss, that was not where it ended. And that wasn't even the most important relationship aspect that McGee had with Gibbs. Gibbs was a father figure. They had a much deeper relationship than work. Work was more surface compared to what they had. And him just being gone, I mean, you know, McGee was able to say goodbye, and that's great and everything, but that doesn't fill that hole in your heart where now he's navigating, you know, continuing to be a dad himself, but doesn't have really Gibbs to kind of learn from or continue to learn from. Someone who's, you know, a father figure to him.
I think you said it right. I think later on this season we'll probably see something more from this. We all know NCIS, they're not going to rush into anything, so they'll probably forget about this for at least a couple of months.
Oh, for sure. I don't expect to hear anything about this again until like next March or something.
Okay, I really like this episode, but there are a couple of beefs that I have here.
Is it 2? Because you're doing this.
Yes, two beefs
okay,
here.
Here we go.
Beef number 1.
2 cheeses. 2 cheeses.
Okay,
here we go.
Cheese number 1. What's the cheese that I don't like? Okay, this is like pimento. I've never had pimento. Maybe I'm just being harsh to it. But anyway,
Prejudgy cheese.
I am prejudgy cheese here. CBS, you guys broadcast NFL games.
Mm-hmm.
McGee's showing up in like a generic, non-licensed number 32 jersey. Like everybody in this room would be like, "What is wrong with you?" And they make like an OJ joke. It's like, can you guys just not go and get a Buffalo Bills jersey? It's like the NFL not going to sign off on like McGee going undercover. It's just like, it is the most. I know nobody cares about this probably other than me, but it's just like realistically, there would have been a lot of questions there. All right, beef number 2.
Cheese number 2.
Cheese number 2 here. Okay, there we go. Here we go. Why was there no Delilah in this episode? Why was there no McGee's kids in this episode who apparently are almost just like ghostly, invisible figures we never see?
Or not even her voice. Like we have him driving to pick up the kids and he's talking to her on the phone, but he's talking to nobody. And he's just like running on talking with no like feedback or of anything. Like even when he's kind of like, hold on a second. I was like, okay, who's he talking to? Like, I know he's talking to Delilah, but where is she to kind of have even just a little bit of dialogue? They couldn't have brought her in for that?
They could have. I'm sure it's time or money or whatever else that kept it. They could have cut a couple of things here and there. Like, did the sequence at the funeral home, for example, need to go on as long as possible? I mean, you're a former funeral director. So what did you think about that scene?
I have never seen anything like that in my life, but that doesn't mean necessarily that it couldn't happen. But 5 minutes before like everything's gonna go on, and you know we've got Taurus being like, "Go on out there, there's sugar cookies." I'm like, okay, yeah, that is definitely something that's going on at a funeral or at like a visitation or something. There's always cookies, tea, coffee at those things, but I've never seen anybody kind of pop in at really any time to be like, I'm just gonna jump in here and take a look after the pathologist has already gone through everything. That has happened 0 times in my career. But again, it's not for sure that it never happens. This is TV, so they're going to take some liberties. I mean, we've seen them lying on morgue tables and stuff. I've never seen anybody do anything even remotely close to that dirty before.
I just had this mental image of you just having a heart attack when they're just like pulling out the guy's leg and taking off the shoe and the sock right in the visitation room.
No, the only time I've ever seen anything kind of like that is, say the family brings in a different pair of shoes and they're like, originally we wanted these brown shoes, but now we want these black shoes. No problem. But yeah, just sort of undressing him and looking for things like, I don't know, man.
Well,
that's probably not a thing.
This was a really fun episode. Maybe that McGee stuff will pay off down the road.
I hope so. I really love McGee episodes.
Yeah, like these are always really good. Hopefully you guys are just as satisfied, but hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other updates. Yeah. I'm going to go off, have a man time Monday now. And
you got some cheese?
I'm going to have some.
What's your favorite cheese?
Give me like the sharpest cheddar possible where it's all just like crumbly and like, half people hate it, half people love it. The sharper, the better. That's my motto.
It's pretty good. A creamy brie kind of girl.
Yeah,
it is my favorite. Tell us what your favorite cheese is in the comments if you made it to the end of this video.
And we'll see you here next time.